Welcome everybody to today's video. Today on Elections Retrospective, the channel where we discuss American politics, elections, and history, we will be taking a deep dive into the NYC mayoral race. I haven't really seen many election predictions and analysis YouTubers talking about this race, but honestly, it is a very interesting race, specifically the Democratic primary. Because let's get one thing straight, the general election is almost 100% certain to go to the Democrats. The Democratic primary is really the center of attention in this race. As many of you know, Andrew Yang is running for mayor of New York. He ran for president in 2020, and although he didn't perform so well during the Democratic primaries, he did garner a lot of publicity and a loyal following through the hashtag Yang Gang. And this was largely due to his unique policies such as UBI, otherwise known as Universal Basic Income. He was one of the few people he is one of the few people in the NYC Democratic primary to not be involved in New York City politics prior to the race. Now, let's just take a look at the major candidates. As you can see, Eric Adams is the Brooklyn Borough President. Sean Donovan was actually the former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, as well as the former NYC Commissioner on House Preservation and Development. Catherine Garcia was the former Commissioner of New York City's Department of Sanitation. Raymond McGuire and Diane Morales are actually business people, not former politicians, just like Andrew Yang. Maya Wiley is a professor as well as the former chair of the NYC Civilian Complaint Review Board. And Scott Stringer is the current NYC comptroller. And here we have Andrew Yang, who was the presidential ambassador for global entrepreneurship for 2 years under the Obama administration, and is the founder of Venture for America. And as many of you know, he was a candidate for president of the United States in 2020. Now, out of all of these candidates, Andrew Yang clearly has much more name recognition. Currently, Andrew Yang is the supposed frontrunner in the race and has been leading in the polls consistently. Now, let's just pull up the polling data for the Democratic primary. And he has been consistently leading, as you can see. However, he has started to take a hit in the polling, and Eric Adams has actually pulled ahead. So, let's just discuss this. Andrew Yang led pretty comfortably in early 2021 when he first announced his run and hit his peak in late February. He has taken a hit in polling since then, and the race has actually started to narrow pretty significantly. Eric Adams, who I mentioned earlier, seems to be the front runner in the race. He has now overtaken Yang in the polling. Now, there are a number of reasons why Yang is slipping up. And the first reason is he has made multiple mistakes and missteps during the campaign. These include the time he said he would crack down on unlicensed street vendors, which would negatively affect mainly poor immigrants. It garnered a lot of outrage, and a lot of the candidates in the race were quick to attack Yang for his statement as well. There was a time Yang admitted he gave away his pet dog on National Pets Day, which I most people don't care. Like most voters won't care about this, but it's certainly something that would garner our outrage on the internet. Now, secondly, Yang being the front runner for so long, he is practically the center of campaign attacks by all candidates because he used to be the front runner. That's been thrown into doubt. And also, it's because he has the most name recognition. So it would make sense why the other candidates would attack him to try to come out on top. It's mainly a race against Yang and not amongst themselves. So, of course, so much negative campaigning against him would wear down his campaign. Now, there also is currently some outrage going around about Yang's comments about Israel. Um, what's basically going on with Israel is Andrew Yang sent out a tweet. I believe it was a few days ago or so, and this was after there were reports of war crimes in Palestine by Israel, and Andrew Yang defended Israel, I believe. And this statement, it really angered a lot of people on the left wing, and many people who had once supported him are starting to back away from him because of his backing of Israel. And he got confronted about this. I saw the video once by a group of voters about his support of Israel following these war crimes. So I think that is definitely having an effect on on his campaign. Now, lastly, Yang has missed out on key endorsements by unions and progressive groups, including the Working Families Party. Usually, the Working Families Party doesn't actually run candidates. They support whichever candidate they view as the best. And if they are displeased with the candidate that ultimately emerges from the Democratic Party, they run their own. Now, although I believe I could be mistaking this party for a different one, I believe this is the correct one. Now, this could definitely hurt him because endorsements from groups like this, like unions and progressives, is really key, especially in a Democratic primary, because you need groups of voters in order to unlock yourself, or how would I say, to build up to a victory. Yang already has the appearance that he is disconnected from New York residents. And without these endorsements, and without any beforehand connections to his New York constituents, having never been elected to office in the city, he might be chosen over a more connected politician who people are more familiar with. Yes, I know that Andrew Yang has a lot of name recognition, which certainly plays out well for him, and is the reason why he he was polling so well in the primary. His name recognition has helped him to raise millions over his other contenders, which puts him at an advantage, to be sure. Yet, will this be enough to keep him in the lead and propel him to victory in the primary? Could that be? What is my prediction? I believe that Eric Adams will win the Democratic primary, and he will go on to win the general election. Now, my reasoning is Andrew Yang. A lot of people on the left wing are starting to, abandon him, mainly due to his support of Israel. And due to that, he's losing not a lot of support, but once people who were once a part of his supporters are starting to chip away. And also, I think that Eric Adams will win because he has the support of key groups such as unions and progressives to hand him the victory. He is more connected to New York politics than Andrew Yang is, which certainly could play into his advantage. So I think that Eric Adams will win the New York City governor race, both in the primary, the Democratic primary, and in the general election. And you can see that Andrew Yang is no longer the leader in the polls. His once strong lead over the other contenders in the race has now been whittled down and whittled down. Adams actually bumped ahead in the polls for a brief moment, but came back down. And then Andrew Yang narrowly pulled ahead of him once again. And now Eric Adams has pulled ahead in the polling. And I think that this shows that Andrew Yang, his campaign is no longer as strong as it once was, and his name recognition is not enough to pull him over the victory line. So, what are your predictions? What are your thoughts on this mayoral race? Do you think Yang will win? Will Eric Adams win? Or will some other Democrat win? Might even the Republican win in the general election? That would certainly be an interesting scenario, albeit very unlikely. And with that said, I will see you all in the next